I want you to think for a moment and try to remember how old you were when you first realized that the family that you grew up in wasn't the standard of normal. Do you have that one of those memories? Because early on, like whatever's going on in the first few years of your life, like this is what everybody's doing. And then at some point you meet another family and you're like, wait a second. You guys don't put ranch on your pizza? Or you guys don't watch football, or whatever it is. There are things that, as early on as you can remember that you start realizing, like, oh, the things that happen in my family are different. I'm reading a novel right now called The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles, and he talks about this. He's just an incredible author. And in it, he says this: because young children don't know how things are supposed to be done, they will come to imagine that the habits of their household are the habits of the world. If a child grows up in a family where angry words are exchanged over supper, he will assume that angry words are exchanged at every kitchen table. While if a child grows up in a family where no words are exchanged over supper at all, he will assume that all families eat in silence. I remember one of my first meals not with my family. I was at a friend's house, early elementary school, and the dinner plates come out, and the only thing on my dinner plate was a salad. Now, up to that point, I have never eaten a salad in my entire life. God bless my mom, but we just did not eat healthy growing up. And salad was never part of the thing. The only vegetables we ever ate was rarely, and it was covered with Velveeta cheese. And so I'm sitting here with this family, and there's salad on my plate. I'm sure there was chicken in there. Looking back on it, I don't imagine it was just salad, but maybe it was. And I'm sitting there, and my buddy, he's just eating. And he's eating like these tomatoes. And I want to cry. Like as a kid, I was just like, this can't be real. That this is dinner. And I went home later that night, and my mom made me mac and cheese, so I felt way better about my life. But it was often, sleepovers were also other times where you noticed things were different. I remember being at a friend's house, sleepover. The parents were like, hey, we're going to bed. Have a good night. I was like, we got to get ready for bed. He was like, no, we stay up past my parents. I was like, what? My mom was always like, she locked the thing down at the end of the night. And so he and we were up till 3 a.m. And I was so tired. And he said, put cold water on your face. It helps you stay awake, right? So there's all these different things. And I imagine you can think through specific moments where you were like, whoa, my family, and hopefully some good ways, but I imagine there's some painful ways as well, when you experienced what families could look like. All of us have been deeply shaped by the family we grew up in. Like even if you're 70 years old in this room, you are still have those shapings of what that early childhood was like. Things that said in your brain, this is normal. And some of those hopefully were really beautiful, but we all know there's some really, really hard things. As we continue our series, as we're looking at revival and awakening, last week we kind of started this 4-part of the series, looking at these different altars of the heart. The altars of the home, altars of the church, and altars of the region. And this is kind of a framework taken, I've shared with you many times. A lot of the series has been deeply influenced by the Awaken Network podcast, Pastor John Tyson in New York, and Sam Gibson and Chad Bohai, who have just helped me a ton think through more deeply revival and awakening. And as we've talked about revival and awakening, revival is when God does this mighty work in the church to wake Christians up and create a radical transformation in the church. And then awakening is more when God's waking people up outside the church and bringing them to Jesus and doing a radical transformation in society at large. And so we're praying and seeking God for both revival and awakening. But John Tyson, who was studying one of the revivals that happened in the Hebrides in the 1950s, one of the leaders in that movement said there were 4 main things that if we can pursue God in these 4 main areas, it creates an irresistible environment for the power and presence of God. And so all of last week was talking about this idea of setting up an altar of our heart. Duncan Campbell said that we can't excuse a lack of revival corporately for the lack of inward personal revival. right? So we can't manipulate God. We can't promise, hey, revival's coming, it's going to happen. We don't know, but that doesn't mean we're not responsible for seeking revival in our own hearts. And so today, what we're going to be looking at is the second part. The second strategy is an altar of the home. The definition of altar I used last week was that an altar is the place where we respond to God's faithfulness with sacrifices of gratitude, remembrance, and devotion. So we want to see altars, we want to see these places where we're devoted to God in His goodness and His grace. Ultimately, we start individually, but then it goes out of us just as individuals and then moves into our homes. And the way, as I'm defining homes today, I know we're all in different homes. When I say home today, I want you to think about this. Your household relationships, so the people you live with, and maybe that you don't even live with them under the same roof, but they're deeply connected to you, household relationships, and the rhythms that shape you. And so what we want to do is build altars, these places where we're devoted to God in our deepest relationships and the rhythms that are often shaping us. So if you have a Bible, run over to Deuteronomy chapter 6. We're going to read through this whole chapter. Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Bible in the Old Testament. And for a little bit of context, you had Israel, that they were enslaved under Egypt. God rescues them, brings them out of Egypt, brings them on the way to the promised land, but He sets up this covenant with the people and goes, hey, I'm going to be your God, you're going to be my people. Just follow me and trust me, and very quickly they don't. And so what should have been a quick trip to the promised land becomes a long journey through the wilderness, so long that the oldest generation ends up dying off. So there's the second new generation that's going to enter into the promised land. And this is Moses, one of his final speeches to go, hey guys, before you go into the promised land, you need to understand a few things. Okay? And so Deuteronomy 6 is going to be a big piece of that. Deuteronomy 6, verse 1. Moses says, "This is the command, the statutes and ordinances the Lord your God has commanded me to teach you, so that you may follow them in the land you are about to enter and possess. Do this so that you may fear the Lord your God all the days of your life by keeping all His statutes and commands I'm giving you, your son and your grandson, and so that you may have a long life. Listen, Israel, and be careful to follow them, so that you may prosper and multiply greatly, because the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you a land flowing with milk and honey. Listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These words that I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your city gates." Okay, so we'll pause there. So Moses says, hey, listen, we're about to go into the promised land. Here's the most important thing for you not to forget, the most important thing for you to pursue. Number one, love the Lord your God with everything you are. Guys, this is all about Him. Yep, we get to enter this beautiful land of flowing with milk and honey and all the good stuff. But first and foremost, we are responding to the God who took us out of slavery, and we are going to love Him first with everything we are. And right after that, He says, and tell your kids. It's not just enough for you to be like, oh, my heart, I'm personally devoted to God. God says, hey, this is a generational thing. This isn't just a you and God thing. This is you passing on the good news of what God has done to your children and their children. So we start in our own hearts, but then we quickly move to our home, the relationships that we are impacting, and we start with loving God, and then we speak to our kids. We speak to our close family. We speak to our friends, our relationships. We're reminding them regularly, God is number one, okay? He continues, verse 10. When the Lord your God brings you into the land He swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that He would give you, a land with large and beautiful cities that you did not build, houses full of every good thing that you did not fill them with, cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. And when you eat and are satisfied, listen carefully, be careful not to forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. Fear the Lord your God. Worship him and take your oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, the gods of the peoples around you. For the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God. Otherwise, the Lord your God will become angry with you and obliterate you from the face of the earth. Do not test the Lord your God as you tested him at Massah. Carefully observe the commands of the Lord your God, the decrees and statutes he has commanded you. Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, so that you may prosper and so that you may enter and possess the good land the Lord your God swore to give your fathers by driving out all your enemies before you, as the Lord has said. That is a crucial passage. Because what God is saying is, hey, I took you out of slavery, I'm bringing you into this promised land, but there's going to be a temptation for you. When you're living in a land of abundance and plenty, you're going to forget about me. You've lived in hardship, but as soon as things start going really well, you're going to look around and be like, I did all this. I'm amazing. Who is that God who got us out? I don't even remember who that was. And so God says, hey, don't forget what I've done for you. Remember when things are going well. Because isn't it true in life? When things are hard, it's a little bit easier to run to God. Like you're like, nothing else is working, so I might as well run to the God who created me. But when things are good, you're like, well, thanks, God. We'll give you a little shout of thanks in the morning real quick. And now we'll just kind of do our own thing. Now, there's some stuff in here, and I wish I had way more time, but I feel like I have to address. Because some of this is kind of, it's like obliterate from the face of the earth, and what's going on here? Why is God so angry, right? Now, let me give you a tiny little bit of Old Testament history to kind of help give some framework for this. I'd love to preach a whole sermon on this, and I have, but here's 2 minutes. In the ancient world, and still today in many cultures, the people represented and reflected the God, or the gods, okay? So when God calls Israel and says, you're going to be my people, I'm going to be your God, he's saying, you need to reflect me to the rest of the world. Now, God's desire for Israel was for them to be a blessing to the nations, for them to be a part of this redemptive plan that's going to change and save and heal the world. Okay, that's the plan. Yet Israel, over and over and over, turned their backs on God, worshiped other gods, and walked in unfaithfulness. So God's constantly in this like pickle, if you will. God could either allow Israel, and all the nations know that Israel worships Yahweh, this God. God could either say, okay, Israel, you've been unfaithful, you're oppressing the poor, you're worshiping false idols, you're sacrificing your children on the altar, you're doing all these awful things. God could allow them to continue to do that, and then allow the nations to think that's what Yahweh is like. Or he could bring judgment upon the people and go, that's not what I'm like at all. Those are the options God has. Because if he's just kind of like a lenient father, he's like, oh, my kid's in prison again, he keeps killing people, oops, sorry. He's like, oh, you as the dad, you're the problem. But if the dad has wayward children and stands firm and goes, this is unacceptable, then it actually gives a little bit more of a reflection of who the dad is, right? And so constantly we see this story throughout the whole Old Testament. God's like, I love you, I want to show you mercy, but you're showing the nations a false picture of me, and it's only through a true picture of me that the nations will be healed. And that's God's ultimate desire. And which, fast forward, New Testament, Jesus is the ultimate solution to this dilemma. Jesus is the true and faithful Israelite who gives us a perfect picture of who God is, and then he himself takes on the judgment that you and I deserved for our waywardness and sinfulness. It's an incredible resolution, but we don't have time for more of that. So, verse 20, let's keep going. Well, we have more time for Jesus. We'll keep talking about him, but you get what I'm saying. Verse 20, when your son asks you in the future, what is the meaning of the decrees, statutes, and ordinances that the Lord our God has commanded you? Tell him, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand. Before our eyes, the Lord inflicted great and devastating signs and wonders on Egypt, on Pharaoh, and on all his household. But he brought us from there in order to lead us in and give us the land that he swore to our fathers. The Lord commanded us to follow all these statutes and to fear the Lord our God for our prosperity always and for our preservation as it is today. Righteousness will be ours if we are careful to follow every one of these commands before the Lord our God as he has commanded us. So your kids are going to grow up in your homes and they're going to go, hey, why don't we worship all these other gods? Why do we go worship this way? Why do we not do this? Why do we do this? And Moses says, hey, when your kids ask you these questions, which kids will ask you plenty of questions, tell them the reason we do these things is because we used to be slaves in Egypt, but our God graciously rescued us, and now we're free, so we love him and obey him. That's why we do things differently in the Sarian household. That's what you should be telling your kids. Because your kids are going to be, why don't we do what they do? Let me tell you, because Jesus rescued us. And he saved us, so we live a little differently. And this isn't like, even Christians will have differences in their family, so don't be like, God saved us and not them, you know. But there are differences. But when they want to do things that are not of Jesus, our response is, oh, that's not of the way that brings life and flourishing. And we know that because mommy and daddy used to live a life like that. And we don't live that anymore because he's rescued us. And so now we live this way. Okay? So Deuteronomy 6 is packed, and it's really helpful for us as we continue to think about this altar of the home. There's some very, very helpful insights. And what I want to do for the rest of our time is just kind of give us some 3 essentials for what does it look like to build altars devoted to God in our homes. And now, I know not everyone has kids, and so I'm going to do my best to help those of you who are single, and those of you who are married without kids, or you're married and empty nesters and the kids are older than me and all the good stuff. How does this look like? You're still called to set up an altar devoted to God in your home, even if there's no kiddos. And so what does this look like? The first thing that it looks like is to identify the altars in your home that aren't devoted to God. Right? Like we'd be pretty foolish to assume, oh, Brad, my home, everything, my rhythms, my relationships, they're all perfectly devoted to God. It's like, no, probably not. So let's identify first, where are there other altars in our home, other places that we are devoting time and energy and resources to that are not specifically to God. We want to first identify these, right? Especially because many of us, as Americans, are living in a land of plenty. And God's already told us, hey, when things are good, this is when it's going to be even more difficult to follow me. And so for those of you who are like, well, Brad, my life's good, things are good, it's like you're all the more need to take inventory on your home and going, okay, what are the rhythms and the relationships that I have, and are they ultimately devoted to God? Because it's easy to say something, it's another to do something, right? I remember when we were planting this church, we were a couple years in, and I was talking to another church planter, and he was kind of church planter / church planting coach. And we were talking, and he was asking me questions about Restored. He's like, what are you guys about? And I was like, oh, actually, we have 6 values. And so I started naming our values: gospel, family, dependence, mission, multiplication, renewal, all these things. And I'm telling him about our values. And he stops and he goes, real quick, are those actual values or are those aspired values? I was like, oh. I was like, well, they're on our website, so of course they're real values. But he was just gently pushing, like, you can have values on your website that aren't true of who you are as a church. You could have values in your living room on the wall, and they don't reflect who you are as a family. Are they actual values for you, or are they aspired values? At least have the aspired values, yes, but ultimately we want those aspired values to become actual values. So as we identify these false idols in our homes, I want to give you 2 potentials. 2 potentials that I see. One temptations for us at Restored, and just they're part of the Valley, they're part of LA, and our time. And so I'll give you two. Hopefully you'll think of others, but here are two. Comfort and success. I think these are two false altars that many of our homes have built up. The first one's comfort, okay? Comfort is this insatiable desire for ease and relaxation. Now, I need to preface, comfort and success aren't evil in and of themselves, okay? They become evil when those become the main thing, okay? So comfort is this, and some of you, you're already like, get off me, Brad, get off me. Comfort looks differently. I love the laughs, thank you. Comfort looks differently in each home, but here's what it might look like for those of you who don't have kids, right? If you don't have kids, here's what comfort could look like. You put in your hard days of work, you get home, and you look at the clock and you're like, I've got 5 hours for just me time. I've got a queue of Netflix shows that will last me a decade. I got food and drink in the fridge, phone on do not disturb. No one can knock on the door, or if they do, I'm not coming. It is just me chilling. Okay? Now, when Sarah and I were in San Diego, we were from the Valley originally, but we ended up moving up to San Diego after about 3 years, helping the Restored Church down there. When we moved back up here to the Valley, even though that's where we're originally from, one of the most shocking things for us was this idol of comfort. Even though we grew up in that situation, like, I don't know if you've ever been away for something for a while, and then you come back and you're like, whoa, what I thought was normal, like, this is unique. When we were in San Diego, one of the shocking things about being down in San Diego was almost every night people wanted to go out. Like, it'd be a Tuesday night. They're like, hey, you want to go get dinner and drinks? We're like, it's Tuesday. They're like, I know, let's go. It was like, and the next night, hey, dinner and drinks? Like, it's Wednesday. Like, it just seemed like it was every night. People are going out, they're doing things, fun vibes. San Diego has some incredible food. That was it. We moved back up to the Valley to plant here, and it'd be a Friday night, and they're like, hey, you guys want to go out? And they're like, no, we're home. We got a 6-pack in the fridge, and we're going to watch some TV. Like, didn't you do that Monday to Friday? Like, yeah, we're going to just keep doing it on repeat. Like it's just this idol of comfort in the Valley. It was like something I had never seen before until we moved back here. It was like, this is real, right? Maybe for those who have kids, it might look a little different. I think it's looked very different throughout, different families and different times. But I think when I look at right now the current idol of comfort in families, I think it's dominated by screens. It's never been easier to have children because you can outsource parenting to a screen right now. Like, you could have 10 kids in a home, give them 10 iPads, and you're like, I'm good. I got some time. It's unbelievable. Now, again, I'm not anti all screen use. Our kids use screens. They have rules, all the things. But I think as parents, if you have a temptation toward comfort, the temptation to give your kids screens so that you can continue doing whatever you want to do, it's very real and alluring. This is something I'm really passionate about, and one day maybe I'll do a seminar of types. But you, if you're a parent, need to be thinking very deeply about the screen use in your family. Okay? There are so many incredible resources right now to be thinking deeply. I just read this book this past week that was really helpful by Jean Twenge. It's from the library, guys, because I'm not buying books right now. So 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World. Jean Twenge, she's a psychology professor down in San Diego State University. Not a Christian book, but just some basic thoughts of like, hey, when should your kid get a smartphone? How much time should your kids be spending on screens? Because I've seen it in my own heart. I'm tired at the end of the day. And the kids, man, if you just allow them free reign on the phones, the tablets, whatever, they will be quite content most of the time. And so, now again, comfort isn't the worst thing ever. It's not evil. There is a piece of comfort that is good and necessary. But here's the problem. If we're setting up our homes, whether single, whether married, no kids, whatever, if we're setting up our homes where comfort is the ultimate God, you are creating an environment where it will be difficult to follow Jesus because following Jesus is often uncomfortable. So if in our home, we're teaching our kids, whether it's something we're actually saying or it's just built into the fabric of our relationships, hey, ease and comfort, that's what mommy and daddy seek, that's what we seek together. They're going to one day read or hear about Jesus Christ saying, if you want to come after me, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. And they go, that doesn't sound fun. That's not what, we don't do stuff like that in my home. We just do easy things. So our comfort, the way we're discipling our kids, the way that we're discipling in our closest relationships, we want to set them up to go, life is hard. And there are difficult things that we do as a family that will ultimately bring us joy and freedom, but we do not exist just to chill. We exist to dwell in the presence of our God who ultimately can bring us comfort in the midst of pain. So comfort is one. Another one is success. When I think about success, I'm specifically talking about worldly success. This is like maybe you just heard the last 5 minutes on comfort. You're like, not in my home. Success, like you are a boot camp of busyness. If comfort is about chilling, success is about hustling, right? For those of you who don't have kids, maybe you work a hard day, you get home, you sit down at the table, laptop's open, emails still going for it. Like you have no idea what it means to rest. You're always working. You're always going. Maybe you get home from a long day and you go to the gym for 5 hours. Or you're working on your second startup. Or you're taking more online classes because you can't just sit. You can't just rest. It's going. It's like, man, I got to get ahead. I got to get more money. I got to get more fame. I got to get more. Success drives many of us. Those with kids, what does the idol of success, this false altar of success look like? Sports, academics, music, recitals, whatever. Where we aren't just as a mom or a dad pursuing success, we're also teaching our kids, you better thrive. You better succeed in life. Again, we don't say it necessarily, but we say it to them by them being busy with sports 15 hours a week, unable to make it to church gatherings on Sundays because tournament. Looking at their grades and not taking into account the way they actually are trying hard, but going, this is the standard in this home if you don't get A's. What are you doing here? Where there's this unspoken rule that you better thrive. You better succeed. This is all there is for you, right? Again, I'm not anti-extracurricular things. My son is in sport. He is on a club basketball team. My daughter takes piano and singing lessons. We're a normal family, I know. Normal. But it is shocking to me with the club sports that we've seen over the last 5 years and the chaos that can be, even amongst families that are like, oh no, we're Christians. It's like, it doesn't seem like Jesus is the center of your life, at the center of your family. We chose a club sport team that doesn't have games on Sunday mornings. Why? Because Jesus and the church is more important than my son making it to the NBA. I think most parents, if you actually push, that call themselves Christian, if it was like, hey, if your son could make it to the NBA or be a Christian, which one would you choose? They'd be like, that's a tough one. Shouldn't be tough. Like, hey, your son be a Christian or you don't have to finish that. Jesus. That's what we want for our children more than anything else. And we're making decisions regularly for our kids to help them either see that he's the most important or he's not. So we want to constantly, it's not just another tournament, it's not just another recital. It is how are we discipling our children to see that Christ is the most important thing? Are grades the most important, or is Jesus? Are sports the most important, or Jesus? So as families, we want to, yes, success is not evil in and of itself, but we want to be really, really clear with our kids that, man, we're raising you to know and love him more than everything else. Like he's at, John Tyson in the Awaken Network podcast, they use the phrase, the organizing principle of your home. Maybe the word altar feels a little funky, but what's the organizing principle in your home? And some of you, it would be sports, or it'd be academics, or it'd be whatever. And so here are just two. Hopefully you can think of some others. And this isn't just a thought experiment. It's like, oh wow, yeah, Brad, I've got success and I've got comfort, I've got all these idols in my home. What's the next move? Well, it's what happens in the Old Testament over and over and over when faithful people of God realize that there are false altars built up. What do? Tear them down. They don't go, wow, look at all these false altars. Those are bad. Anyways, let's keep doing our life. They tear them down. This is what King Josiah does in 2 Kings 23. He reads the law and he goes, oh my gosh, we've forsaken God. And so he sees all these false altars built in the land to other gods. And he goes, tear them down, demolish them, destroy them all. Okay? In Judges 6, we see Gideon. God shows up to Gideon. And Gideon, in response to God, builds an altar. And then the very next verse, God says to Gideon, now I want you to go destroy your dad's altars that are built to false gods. It's like, uh-oh, that might cause some problems. His dad is worshiping other gods. And Yahweh, the true God, goes, I need you to tear those down. So Gideon, a little nervous, does it at nighttime. And he tears down the altars of his dad. And the very next morning, the townspeople are furious. They're like, who did this? Guess what they want to do with Gideon? Kill him. We might be like, yeah, tear the altars down. You tear the altars down, there will be resistance. Like literally, when I talk to other parents about team sports and club sports, about prioritizing Jesus and his church over sports, there is pushback. They're like, oh, you're ruining your kid. Why are you so serious about this? They're not like, yay. When my kids are the ones who don't have smartphones going into junior high, parents get mad at us. They're like, what? Your kid's going to miss out on everything. I was like, he'll be okay. Your kid is not missing out on anything, and that's their problem. They have too much going on there. Like as we tear down altars, there will be resistance. There may be resistance even within your own home, from your own parents, from friends and neighbors. This is normal, but the question is, will we continue to build false altars to other gods and allow them to reign in our homes as other organizing principles? And we'll go, no, they won't. Will it make us look a little weird? It will at times. It will. And does it require a lot of wisdom and discernment? Yes, because as you can tell, we still do sports. I'm not like, we don't do any sports and we don't do any music. No, we do. We just do it in a way that we view as healthy that still keeps Jesus at the center. You need to figure out what that looks like for your family, where he's still at the center, but we tear down altars that aren't devoted to God. But we don't just tear them down. We rebuild altars that are devoted to Jesus Christ, okay? And so the last couple things, the way we do this is, one, we build healthy rhythms that place Jesus at the center. We build healthy rhythms that place Jesus at the center. So I want to get really practical here. We're talking about altars. We're talking about all these things. How do we tear these things down, but how do we rebuild altars that have Jesus at the center? We need healthy rhythms in our homes that help us focus on Jesus first, okay? Let me give you one practical tool. I don't know if any of you have ever done this, but in some like leadership business books, they highly recommend you, especially for those of you who have a little bit more flexibility with your work schedule, to create an ideal week. So I have on my desk It's an Excel sheet with every 30 minutes of the day, every day of the week. And on that is my ideal week, what it looks like. If I could create my own ideal week, given the responsibilities God's given me, to do this as well as I could. Now, that ideal week is a little devastating because it happens about 6% of the time. But here's the thing. I at least know what my ideal week looks like. I at least know what I'm seeking and pursuing. Yep, things are going to come up all the time. But a lot of people use these distractions or other things that come up as an excuse to never sit down and do the hard work of going, what am I seeking? Like what if God gave me a week where he was like, all right, Brad, free reign. You do whatever you want. I think many of us would be like, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I should do. Please, someone else email me and tell me what I should do. Instead, it's going, okay, I'm building a healthy rhythm, a healthy calendar of what my life should look like in a way that honors and puts Jesus first, okay? So a couple quick questions. What would your ideal mornings look like? Amen. Breakfast, yeah. What would your ideal morning look like? I love you, Dylan. Breakfast should get in there somewhere. What time are you waking up at? See, many of us, we were like, well, it depends on when Netflix ends the night before and what time work starts. And I was like, no. Like, guys, do you know how much control you actually have over your calendar? Many of us, we're just victims. We act as victims like, well, we'll just see what happens. People are shocked when I tell them that we turn the lights off in our home at 9 o'clock every night. They're like, that's impossible. I'm like, come over. You literally drive by. It's just going to be dark. It's like, how do you do that? It's like, we've built a rhythm where I used to be up late, but more important to me are my mornings with Jesus Christ. And and I have kids. Some of you are like, I've got kids. I've had kids for a while too. That means I need to wake up before they do if I'm going to get some good time with Jesus. So you just have to do some math, and I'm committed to sleeping deeply. So that means I have to actually go to bed early. And so what does my ideal morning look like? Well, it actually starts with what my ideal evening looks like. Now again, gospel communities, those will keep you up a little later, and you need it. There are times we have neighbors over. Those, yes, but don't allow those to be the excuse, if that's 2 or 3 nights a week, for what the majority of the rest of your week should look like. So we're building rhythms going, okay, what does my ideal night look like? If I'm living at home, even if I'm living alone or with my family, like what are the rhythms that we had in different seasons of our lives on our refrigerator, our calendars for our evenings? Because our kids, they're just like, what are we doing now? What time is it? It's like, dude, we do the same thing every single night. Look at the clock, look at that, match it up, here's what we're doing. We're like, well, we know kids thrive on rhythms, but for many of us, we don't realize that we also thrive on rhythms. We're just big kids, okay? It's not like you graduate from that. And so now I know some of you work evenings, and it's different, so don't use that as an excuse. Figure out what your rhythms could look like in an ideal world for you to rebuild it with Jesus at the center. Your mornings, your evenings, and your weekends, right? What does a weekend look like for you to put Jesus Christ at the center? For us, that's Sabbath. Friday, 5 p.m., Saturday, 5 p.m. Does that get ruined sometimes? It does. Yesterday was a little wild with trunk or treat. It's going to happen. But again, most people are like, well, the trunk or treat comes, so we might as well not have a plan for a Sabbath. It's like, it's once a year. I'm okay ruining a Sabbath here and there once a year because the other weeks are set. So will you spend time? What do your evenings look like? What do your mornings look like? And if you mess up, it's okay. It's normal. But to have an ideal going, Jesus, I want to put you at the center of this. Whether you got kids, figuring out family devotionals, what works best for you. I've read so many books, and every book is like, here's what you need to do for family devotionals, right when you wake up, or right when you're at dinner, or it's like, figure it out. For us, it works best at dinner table. We would do some Bible time, or right now we're reading through a catechism. That's a little too advanced. It's my fault. But we're trying to get through this catechism, and just questions and answers about Jesus. And it's quick. It can be 3 minutes long. But it's just going, this is ideal. And that doesn't mean 7 days a week. but it means more times than not. That's it. All we're seeking is more times than not, right? So we're trying to build healthy rhythms that place Jesus at the center. And the last thing is this. We build healthy relationships that put Jesus at the center. We're building healthy relationships that put Jesus at the center in our homes. Now, I know some of you live alone, but the majority of you have roommates or spouses or kids or family of some sort. What would it look like for you to not just have an ideal calendar, but ideal rhythms in your relationships with those you live with? Like some of you are Christian roommates living together, but you kind of treat that as just like ships in the night that are passing, and you never talk about God. And it's like, hey, what could it look like in your home as roommates to put Jesus at the center of this home? Like, does it look like a weekly meal? Does it look like taking communion together or something? Like what could it look like for us to put Jesus at the center in our relationship in this home? For marriages, how are we building healthy marriages in our homes? Like if you have kids, your kids are watching, and it's one of the clearest pictures of the gospel or the biggest distortions of the gospel is our marriage. And so what are some healthy rhythms? My wife and I we're teaching the class right now on preparing for marriage. So we have about 10 couples in this on Monday nights, and it's been a lot of fun for us. It's really convicting to teach a class on marriage when you're married, because you're like, oh, some of these things we used to do and we haven't done as well, or some of the things we're doing right now we forgot. Like there's a bunch of things that as we're processing, as we're co-teaching this thing together, it's like, oh man, we need to make sure that we're staying in line with these things. One of the things we told our crew this past week or the week before was one of our everyday rhythms is as we get into bed, we ask, how can I pray for you? So we pray for each other, and then we give each other a kiss and say, good night, I love you. Every night. Now, that's on the ideal calendar. Are there some nights? There's some nights. By God's grace, the vast majority of nights these days in year 14 of marriage follow that plan. Year 2 of marriage, 50-50. But we didn't give up on it. We didn't give up on what we thought was ideal. We said, this is what we want our marriage to look like. And even if on a week we hit 30%, we don't go, throw the whole thing out. We go, well, 30% is better than 10%. And we just keep moving forward. And I'm shocked. Some of you guys have been around our church for 10 years. You're like, all right, Brad, we know you kiss your wife and pray every night in bed. Wow. I know. But like some of you still don't do stuff like that. And I'm like, how much? This doesn't cost any money. like this, I don't know why you, and maybe you have a different rhythm that's even holier than praise God. But if you've got nothing, start there. And you're like, well, Brad, now if we start it, they're going to know it's because of you, because they're sitting next to me right now. Blame it on me. All right, babe, we got to pray tonight because Brad said so. And I'm going to even kiss you because Brad told me to kiss you. Sure, blame it on me. I'll happily take the credit for that. What are the healthy rhythms we're building in place for the sake of flourishing in our marriages? What are the healthy rhythms we're building with our families, with our kids? Like I mentioned, family devotionals, Bible time, these things. We're going, hey, we pray together as a family. Right now, and this changes. It always is changing. But right now, my kids now have their own bedrooms. And so I go in at the end of the night, around 8:45 p.m. I go with my daughter. I say, hey, baby, how can I pray for you? She tells me how I can pray for her. And then I used to only pray for her. Now she's old enough. She prays first. And then I pray for her, give her a kiss, say goodnight, love you, walk to my son's room. I say, hey, my boy, how can I pray for you? He gives me something. And then he prays. And I pray for him, love you, good night, go. And I pray with my wife. It's like, I'm just like, check. All right, we're good. Like these are rhythms that work for us. I'm not, you don't have to do that. There's no Bible verse that this is what you have to do. But what are the healthy rhythms and relationships that you're building in your home? Because, getting back to this whole sermon, when Duncan Campbell said there's 4 main ways if we want to see God move in revival and awakening, it starts in the heart, but then it very quickly goes to the home. I want to see restored homes, whether you got kids or not, have altars that are devoted to the presence and beauty of Jesus Christ. I know some of you are retired. You got about 100 hours a week of you time. Are you stewarding those well for the glory of Jesus? I want our homes, no matter what stage of life you're in, our homes to be devoted altars to God. And remember, our altars are not to initiate. Our altars are not to get God to love us. God eagerly wants to dwell with you. We know this through the incarnation. God left heaven in the person of Jesus Christ so that he could dwell with us. He doesn't see us creating these altars and going, nope, I don't know about that. I don't like that. He's eager to spend time with us. He's eager to show up in power. Would we give him space for it? I started by asking you how old you were when you realized that your family wasn't the standard of normal. You know what I long for? And I know we have not done this perfectly, but I long for the days where I can sit with my son and daughter when they're older and go, Daddy, we thought everybody got a kiss and prayed in bed every night. Like, Daddy, we thought that everyone sat around a dinner table and shared their highs and lows and laughed and had good conversation. Daddy, we thought it was normal just to walk out after waking up and seeing Mommy and Daddy praying and reading the Bible in the mornings. Like, we just thought this was normal. We thought it was normal to miss basketball tournaments to come to the church gathering. We thought that was just normal. Thank you for leading us, setting up an altar for Jesus Christ in our home. I long for that day. Would we be living and striving to create homes where Jesus Christ is the center? Let's pray.